From Glitch HQ on Riverside Avenue in rested Wasteful, Minneapolis, this is Nice Games Club, the show where nice game devs talk gaming and game development.
I'm Martha McGarry, and I make nice games.
I'm Stephen McGregor, and I make nice games.
And I'm Arthur Croy, I too make nice games. In this interview episode, we talk to game designer and developer Lane Davis, co-founder of Escape Industries, to discuss serial game design, or starting more games than you finish, and we'll also get into the practice of adding juice to your games. So, everyone's ready. Let's start.
Smooth.
I try to time those.
Well, it comes out differently every time, but it's fun.
Yeah. I'd say 1 in 3 is a success, and the others are passable.
Yeah.
I kept, last night when I was at work all night, for some reason I kept saying that a lot, where people would be like, are we ready? Let's start. And I'm like, if everyone is ready, let's start.
Can't confirm. This happened a lot.
Well, tell us this story now, because I think listeners want to know what you're talking about.
You probably have seen in the news that the Minnesota legislature has gone into special session, which means all the IT people have to also go into special session, which means we're there all night. So I'm so well rested. I didn't sleep through this interview episode at all and make us wait. Sorry, guys.
Actually, the first time hearing of this, does that make me a bad citizen of Minnesota?
Oh, no, that's
I wouldn't have heard
probably
of it.
you.
It's a very political answer. You're good at this.
Well,
Nonpartisan.
by our timeline, it just happened, so you're okay. But listeners who are like, this is news to them, maybe they should read a paper.
Yeah. Come on, guys. It's June 5th. By now. Are you kidding me?
Oh, man, I hope that's accurate. We're terrible at calendar math.
It is a nice, sunny June day out there, Steven. But get a load of what the president just did, man. Woo! Oh, man.
That's a perennial
Nice
topic,
to be,
though.
Nice to be in June. May kind of sucked, especially right at the end.
Yeah.
That was horrifying.
Oh, yeah. That was terrible. That was a day.
So, Lane Davis, you are clearly familiar with this program. You've been on it once before.
I've listened to it once or twice.
You're a returning guest.
Yes.
You were on one of our co-op episodes.
Yes.
And that was really fun.
Idea got to 2, so
Yeah.
I had to play catch up.
That's right. Well, a little bit of advance notice. We might have a little more of a dia coming up. So, Lane, sorry.
Oh my goodness.
We'll just have you back on.
Ever since she whooped me at Henshin Engine, I can't win. I'm so far behind.
When we have Fingens up and we have our special Fingens episode, we'll just have you and Charles on.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Yeah, special vengeance episode.
Coming soon, TM.
Man, on Nice Game Club, every episode's a special vengeance episode.
Aw. Wait, I don't know how I feel about that. That sounds good.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Lane works with Steven. They're making Fingens together.
Yeah.
And so we hear a lot about Fingens, and Steven's very embarrassed about that, but we always want to hear about it. And I know our listeners do too. Mm-hmm. So, Steven, just got to stop beating yourself up. But we'll hear a little bit more about it, of course. But really, Lane, you're here to talk about a topic you proposed, serial game design.
Yeah, and you made that sound like a very dirty topic earlier. Or starting more games than you finish.
Isn't that what it is?
Really the best we can do? We can't do like learning from like each little blossom as it grows up in the garden of your mind. Are you? Well, this is where we have to go with this.
The reason it interested me as a topic is because it is something that I think a lot of people do, which they start a project, then they start another project,
Absolutely.
And that's a process by which you learn so much. I mean, if the more different things you do, and this is true of games or different disciplines or anything, the more you know about more things. And that's just a valuable tactic. But at the same time, it could also get you kind of stuck, right? Like, when do you know to move on? When is it time to finish something? And I think you had told us, you've started how many games?
Before Vengeance, 21, after at least 5.
Yeah.
So, like a fair number? I don't think those numbers are that crazy, though. Like, I feel like I know a fair number of people who are in the same boat who are just always...
Admittedly, you're not wrong. Yeah, I feel like, what's it, Ed McMullen? The dude in...
Super Meat Boy?
Yes, Super Meat Boy, yeah. He made a whole bunch of... Him and his partner had made a whole bunch of games before. So, like... And I mean, like, it's good because a lot of people say that your first game is not going to be popular. Your 5th game might possibly.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about prototyping a lot, and like there's certainly it's a healthy practice to like try new things. Yep. I think maybe and this is where you can clarify a little bit, like as a serial game design as a practice rather than as a habit. Like is it when you start these different game projects? Are they with the intention of finishing them? Do you abandon them, or is it just time to move on?
When you're
do you keep working on them?
When you're a child, every game is the game. Every game is the thing that is going to be your life for the next 20 years. It's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to love it. And they'll love you because you made it. But as you learn a little bit, I think by the time you are, in your like 7th long-term relationship, you kind of learn to pick up a few signs that things might not be working out. And I just feel like at a certain point, it's like once you're on your like 12th game or something, and probably substantially earlier if you're smart, but that's about when it was for me.
Yeah.
You sort of realize that this happens. This happens, and you actually can speed up the process a lot if you put on your white gloves and you break out your scalpel and your chainsaw and you just start ripping through games as fast as possible. There's a fellow here who is like, I don't want to call him a new game designer because that's kind of disrespectful. I think he's been doing this for a long time. But Alex Carlson, I admire that guy because he, I think as a practice, tries to get through new game ideas really fast and iterate really quickly on ideas. And I think he's developed the art of coming up with an idea and then pushing it aside once he's made a brief implementation of it.
Right.
And I think that's something that we kind of talk about with fast prototyping and getting things out there. But it's emotionally very difficult to put into practice. I admire people who do that.
Sure, I suppose. So, I mean, you really kind of are talking about prototyping.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about some of these projects of yours. Like, how far did they get? And I mean, were they just prototypes?
Well, these were many of them board games that I worked on for multiple years. Some of them, some with a lot of overlap with others. Some were StarCraft and Warcraft mods, and then a few little Unity projects here and there.
Sure.
But for the most part, I guess what I learned from them is that design space is a really, really hard thing to figure out from first principles. You don't know how smoothly a game is going to come out. And you hear like interviews with Jonathan Blow is somebody I think about quite a bit, talking about how Braid, that hit indie title, was a game that for him just flowed out. And I feel like Jonathan Blow is really smart, but is he really the only person that can do that? Can we each come up with a game idea that can just like flow out of us? And if so, how much are we willing to gamble early on in the game making process so that we can find something like that?
Sure.
I've definitely gotten much more willing to gamble.
The way Jonathan Blow designs his games is he will come up with like one main concept, not even a concept, one like game mechanic, and build that mechanic as big as possible. So the way he did it with The Witness is he had just a whole bunch of dots. Yeah, just a bunch of line and dot puzzles. And he just built that as much as possible. And so some of the puzzles they feel more like I mean, not everything in the game is necessarily supposed to be fun, but he puts the important concepts in there to make sure that people are they basically what happens is like people progress the way that he progresses when he discovers different ways you can approach that mechanic while you're playing the game, which is really interesting. And I enjoy following Jonathan Blow, but I think he's kind of a bit pretentious about it.
Whoa,
I'm going there. I'm sorry.
P word.
I'm sorry.
Man. He's a genius, man.
He is. Like, no, I respect him for sure. But like, I think a lot of people approach games in that way too. It's just that maybe they're more picky about the things they put in the game. I don't know.
I see. Yeah. I don't know. Braid feels like really constrained to me. But like in terms of there's only like 5 new things the game ever does. The game ever makes you do. But the fact that like it all fits together so well, it's symptomatic of a very good idea executed well. And all I'm saying is that I feel like a lot of people can do that. Maybe they don't have to have the same attitude that he had earlier. I think he's mellowed out a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think that this is something within a lot of our grasp. I think we just need to like iterate more.
Oh yeah,
experiment more.
Oh, I'm so glad Lane is here, preaching that good word.
Well, see, that's interesting because I think iteration is something that we've preached on the show before, and I think that it's incredibly valuable. But I think there is a difference between like iterating on a concept that maybe you're married to, maybe you're taking the bet on, and then also sort of juggling multiple things at once.
Right. And
I think they're just different approaches. Like I have a real hard time focusing on the one thing, but I make an effort and I close doors a lot. It's really, really difficult. But what I'm hearing from you is I shouldn't be doing that.
Well, here's the thing. Like I feel like there's a fair number of people. I don't know if you're one of them.
Okay.
But who I feel are in a place in their lives where they've been married to this game for so long.
Sure.
And like, it's not really looking that great. And like, I feel like they should be able to pull the plug at some point.
I see what you mean.
I don't know. Like, I guess I'm advocating people abandoning their hard work,
Which might be easier if you have a couple of irons in the fire.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I guess what I'm saying fundamentally is I wouldn't say anybody who's been in the industry for a long time should be approaching it this way. But for somebody who is really new into this, I feel like what better process than something like what Alex does, which is like every week or every month, new title.
Right,
just to explore the space of like what games can be.
That's what he's doing. He's doing like a game every month or something. I think he's literally doing like a program or something about that. We should look into put it in the show notes.
Right. Absolutely. But I do think that at some point, everybody needs the experience of a commitment and of seeing like how far you can take one idea. I just strongly feel as though the more experimentation somebody does earlier in their career, I think that pays a lot of dividends. I think maybe you reach a point where you can no longer do that responsibly.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying, because what I do is I've been doing lots of VR prototypes the past year, and I cry myself to sleep on the weekends. I work on them because I'm like, I just have, and I did something fun, whatever. I got proof of concept. Now I have to just be done with it because that's the doors I'm closing. But what I'm hearing from you when you say like in these board game designs you were working on for years and years, did you decide to then abandon them after that much time, or did you, or is it? Or are they something that you sort of keep simmering? Because I think that's the difference, and that's where maybe you and I have an ideological struggle.
I hope we do. I hope we do, because that's always good air. I think that there have been moments where I've been like, thank goodness I get to stop doing this. Like, this doesn't have to be a part of me anymore. I tried to make this work for so long, and I realized I was forcing it, and just like dropping it was just such a relief.
Right.
Yeah. Like for example, when I made a StarCraft-ish board game that had a tech tree.
Oh, wow.
You don't do that early in your career. That's a bad idea. It's a lot of moving parts that have to all work together.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So
that sounds intense.
Yes.
Do you have that sitting around somewhere?
Yeah. I have it in a drawer.
You know what we need to do is we should host
But he was relieved, Stephen. He doesn't want to ever see it again.
I mean, if you want to develop it, you have it.
I'm good. I got enough projects.
So, Lane, how many of the projects that you have, how many do you have going right now?
2.
Okay.
Is it
2.
that one you're working on with that class?
And I guess conceivably 3. But
okay.
Yes, one of them is the unknown game, which I will call Star Battle.
Okay.
And this is because I made it for Star Academy. And by I made it, I mean a bunch of middle school kids made it. And I just sort of made the shell of it.
Yeah.
I sort of made like the screen shake and the body shake and the lighting effects so that everything would kind of look cool. So it was easy to make cool looking stuff.
Right.
But all the enemies and the guns and stuff, that was all the kids. All the dungeon rooms.
That's wonderful.
Nice.
Yes.
I love that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Were you doing that through something or?
Yes, I was. I was just contracted to teach for a semester at Star.
Oh,
Academy,
that's so
which is,
cool.
Yeah, for a little school for homeschool kids to come in one day a week.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you got that, and you got Vengeance.
Yes,
And you have
another board game that has been in the works for like
best.
4 years.
It's good.
It is really good.
Is this a
if it's
card
the one
game
that I
you've
played?
you've brought into Glitch a couple times?
This is the card game.
Okay, I've never played it because there's always someone who beats me to it, and it's a really long game.
It's a pretty long
But
game,
but it holds your attention. That's what I like about it, and I'm desperate to try it.
Yeah,
It's called Triumph.
Okay,
It's very fun. So I'm explaining the game for you, but I played it a bunch.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you want to explain? Okay, I'll explain. So the game is you are all in a party of adventurers and you're trying to defeat a monster or whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of different things. Sometimes they're monsters, sometimes they're like creatures. I don't know. But anyways, everybody on your party wants the glory, and so they want to get the last hit on the boss to get the most glory, because they don't know. No one really cares to the person who's supporting, right? They only care about the person who gets the kill.
Sure.
And so that's the whole game. And so we've Lane has built a bunch of mechanics around that. And after each monster, you can gain new skills and stuff. And whoever gets the last hit, I think, gets to pick first, right? But like you get new skills and you get to build out your character more. And then you just keep fighting monsters. And then I think you go up to level 5, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it just takes the most fun part of League of Legends, which is kill stealing, and just turns that into a game all by itself.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up a topic for you guys. I wanted to ask you guys, is on the topic of becoming better as a game designer. I wanted to ask you, what is a way that you have changed your mind recently, like in the last year or so, about making games?
Huh. That is a good question that I need to think about.
I mean, I can go first.
I can cue up the Jeopardy music.
Yeah. I forgot this was so high tech.
Well,
Yeah, you go first.
yeah, go
Okay.
first.
Well, maybe this is just an excuse to compliment Mark. I don't know. But I feel like Mark's role in the community, yes, he is the official Glitch videographer. Yes, he does the Nice Games Club. He hosts it. But the way I look at Mark is he is like Doc Lewis, and we're all 1,000 little Macs out there, and he's just trying to coach us up for the big fight. And I feel like my personal Mike Tyson is my terrible game ideas, and Mark often lets me overcome these by having fun conversations about reasons not to do things in game. And
Fun is a word for them.
That's one of my favorite things. That's one of my favorite things. And so I guess one way that Mark changed my mind somewhat recently, I guess this was maybe 2 or 3 months ago, was I had gotten so excited about this power up that we put in the game to like make the characters all twin stick.
Yeah.
So instead of just narrowly shooting forward like the man says that you should, instead you got to, with dual analog sticks, you got to like move your submarine around in Vengeance and like shoot enemies from any angle.
Yeah.
And man, you had the best description of what Vengeance was and why combat works in that game.
Yeah.
And I've really been carrying that with me because you said that like it was sort of red light, green light. I forget if that was your exact words, but it was like maybe not. Maybe you didn't compare that, but that's what I heard.
Yeah.
That it was like the enemies were shooting you and they were owning a certain amount of space and you had to dodge out of that space.
Oh, yes.
But in order to shoot them, you had to invest and get into that space that was dangerous in order to continue shooting them.
Yeah, it was a risk reward kind of setup.
Wow.
Where you can
Exactly.
you could dodge, and that's survival, but that doesn't get you progress. And so that's how I've always approached it. Is like red light, green light. It's a good way to describe it.
That's very interesting because you have been designing enemies more towards that recently.
Definitely.
I didn't even.
Definitely.
Oh, look at that! I had no idea.
Putting your little stamp on Vengeance.
Well, I mean, mostly my in that conversation, because like, I mean, that Lane, you have been so good about like taking the heat that people give you, which is like, that's a sign of maturity that we don't all have.
Yeah.
But it's really nice to hear that this was valuable to you because I think that the proposal you had was to just turn the game into a twin stick shooter, which would have been so much fun. Like, I think that was what you were caught up in, right?
Probably.
And I think the thing that troubled me most is that it would be a great game. It would just be a different game.
right.
And you know, it was a conversation, but you know, you understood right away what we were getting at.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely. And like in the moment, it was a little hard to hear, but like since then, it has been very valuable. And like it taught me what was fun about the game I was working on.
Yeah.
Is that weird? Like it was like I couldn't quite put it into words at that point, but it was very much like red light, green light. It was very much like, how soon can you re-engage after? How quickly can you turn fear back into aggression?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But you know, that ties in a little bit to sort of why I'm a little bit scared of this idea of serial game design. Is this notion of like having so many things going means you're sort of endlessly tinkering, and maybe because you proposed it, I kind of thought it would have that little bit of that dimension to it. Because I get really nervous about it in my own work. Like I will come with an idea, and I will be really scared that it will be a good idea that's not right, and that holds me back sometimes, which is not good. But I know that has saved me a couple times where I've like, let's not tear this up and bring it down. And I think you are more daring than most people are, which is to your credit. But at the same time,
for real, that's benefited Vengeance quite a bit.
you know,
Vengeance has this like great sort of diversity of gameplay. I think a lot because, and Steven's described this to me before, is he's the cautious one and you're the daring one, and you guys meet in the middle and it really works.
Yeah.
I would say like a whole other topic that I might suggest for Nice Games Club down the road is the benefits of working with people whose personality isn't the same as yours.
Yeah.
Because like, dude, if we ever do the Vengeance episode, that could be like a subtopic because dude, the like industriousness and like thoughtfulness that Charles has.
Yeah.
And then your like thoughtfulness over like what new players need.
Yeah.
And then my like ridiculous stupidity.
It's not stupidity.
It totally
Innovative.
comes to
Innovative. I would, innovative, or it's because you're
Pushing the bounds. Rebel without a cause.
Groundbreaking.
I love it.
This club's getting a little too nice.
No, I mean, like, because you've come up with all of these, I mean, admittedly crazy ideas sometimes, but like new and unique ideas, like we have been able to think about Vengeance or add things to Vengeance that have impacted the game in huge ways. Positively, like it, and
so being that person, but having the community around you who can like restrain you and can like, but more importantly, like have such a in-depth discussion, and that is willing to take a moment out of their day to really think deeply about how your game works. Like that's an incredible service.
It is.
This place is like
we're all invested in each other's work, and we're all fans of each other's work, and like it's impossible to not care. And that is so valuable. And, that's what leads me to sort of what I've changed in the past year is like, I very much prefer a collaborative environment, but I have most experience as a one-man shop in many different fields. And but whenever I have the opportunity to work with others, I always get a lot from it. There's always it's more than the sum of its parts kind of thing. It's why this show works, right?
Yeah.
And, but I find myself very often working on my own and being sort of the auteur because I'm kind of obsessed with figuring out how it all works. And like, I see that as I value that in myself, but I also understand its limits and it can bar me from certain experiences. So what's been nice with this community is being very comfortable with like taking somebody else's idea that they've given you and making that work. And I've been doing that a lot lately with the story structure of my game.
Yes.
We have an event here called Storyforge that Abdiwak and Bobby run once a month at Glitch. And it's just workshopping game narratives. And I always had a strong sort of a fiction and world and narrative for my game. And we've talked about it on the show before that it's not in the game, right? It's just something that I have written down in notes and it's kind of scattered around.
Yeah.
And then as the game my game progresses, I start needing to make decisions about some of these things and sort of solidify a lot of it. And it's been so valuable to just hear other people's reactions to what the game currently is. And then take those things I've been thinking about forever that I feel really strongly about, and then just use that as the flavor, but really what people's reactions, and use that as like the core of it. And I've gotten way more comfortable with that a year or two ago, I would have a lot of trouble. I would enjoy the feedback and the collaboration process, but it would be harder for me to just be like, yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm much more comfortable just like taking an idea and running with it that I didn't just come up with and think about for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And like stew over. And that's sort of a little change that I almost didn't notice happened until more recently.
Are you able to find the parts of other people's ideas that you become passionate about? Does it turn into an energy that you carry into the game?
Yeah, there's two parts of it. One is exactly that like that someone will have a notion, and then because I understand what I want more, like what my goals are, I can take that and just pretend it was my idea and then finish the idea. Right? I don't feel weird about that the way I think a lot of people do when they want ownership of sort of every corner of it. And then the other part is being able to sort of take those pieces and put them together with other previous ideas I had. So there's taking someone's idea and then finishing it, but also taking someone's idea and using it as a solution or as the second half of an idea you already have. And then either that becomes 70-30 or 30-70 or whatever. But like basically tearing down the borders between concepts. And it only works when you have a community that is invested in what you're doing. So like at BWalk especially, it like gave me a lot of really great sort of pointers, like go this way. And I mean, he didn't say it that way. He's like, hey, maybe, because he's such a sweetheart. But and I was like, okay, I'm going that way because like you set the road for me, right? It's been a change, and it's been pretty recent, and I'm really, really happy about it.
I think what you're describing is an enormous win-win for the community because your game ends up better, and then it's stupendously satisfying for the people who see their thoughts.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it very much warms my heart to hear that I had a positive impact on Vengeance because I'm so invested in the success of that game. I love it so much. I mean, we all are, right? And so, like anything we can help, and not like being part of the team, but just like being cheerleaders and assists. And I think that's you get so much out of that, and also it pretty much guarantees that you have now this source of people to do that for you.
Yeah.
Martha, Steven, any thoughts? Or are you guys just like The Rock? Always moving forward.
I'll never change. It's the children who are rock. I think one thing that I've changed my thoughts on are like the small things that you add in a game to make it feel better or for like narrative purposes. I guess those aren't necessarily small things, but I find myself less bothered by small things in games a lot of the time. But I notice that people will constantly bring them up to me.
What's the small thing, Steven?
Well, like for example, sometimes like a sound, someone gets really annoyed about the sound, and I'm like, I didn't even notice that this was an issue. But like they will constantly bring it up to me.
You remember when Fingens had that like 90 decibel bomb beeping like 10 minutes at a time?
Yep, I remember that. That one, no, we picked up on that one. I noticed that.
Okay. That's not a little thing for you.
No, but I don't know. There's little small touches that you can add to the game to make it more impactful for a number of people, and it really makes a difference. And those things, I have a harder time noticing because, like I said, a lot of times small things don't bother me as much. But I because I pay attention to feedback a lot, I make sure that I try to implement or at least consider those different kinds of perspectives, those different kinds of things. So those have helped a lot because I think those little small touches that we've added to Fingens over the years have made a big difference.
Do you feel like there's a substantial amount of time that you spend making games where it's like eating your vegetables, like making stuff for other, because you know it's the right thing to do, but it's not something you really feel like doing?
Yeah.
Well, that's the difference between you as a developer, as a designer, as a player.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes it's hard to divorce that. And I feel like you probably more than most are able to see the difference.
Yep. I am.
I think a lot of other people, I mean, either make games that they themselves would like, or they know there's a difference, but like have a hard time recognizing. Right. And I think you do a better job than most of it.
Yeah.
There's a reason they call him Steven Business.
Oh yeah. Steven Business. But yeah, I think that's something I've changed my tune on in the past year.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm trying to think of like, I feel like I haven't been doing enough work on games in the past 8 months or whatever, ever since I got a full-time job.
Yeah, that makes things hard.
If it helps, we all feel like that no matter what the truth of it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. It's hard to find the time. But I think game jams I've changed some of my thoughts about.
Okay.
Because you used to like them quite a bit, right?
Oh, wait. Leading questions. Who's interviewing who here? Yeah, well, it's been interesting, like doing game jams with Dylan because he has found that he doesn't like them very much at all. Mostly because he doesn't feel like he can finish things, and he likes to have a final product that he can show. And so it's been interesting watching him get so incredibly frustrated with like the progress of how fast you can make games in a game jam and what the scope is of them. And that's been making me realize like, wow, how big people's scopes get in game jams.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, and even when you think, oh, it's a small idea, like that small idea is actually really, really big. Like every time when you go to like implement just one mechanic, like there's going to be like so much work that goes into it. And it's making me think a lot about like what an ideal game jam environment would be and like what really is a small idea.
Yeah. That is an interesting topic.
Mm-hmm.
We should approach on the show.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it would be nice to like have a discussion about that sometime and I don't know, figure out what is the nicest size idea that one can make, and
right.
how should we be guiding new jammers in game jams? Like how can we make that a better experience for people who want finished products or just want a different experience out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is scope.
So wait a minute. So what about your opinion changed?
Well, just the size of a game that I think you could make.
Oh, I see. So you felt a little more unrestricted, and now you're worried. Now you're more concerned about scope.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess it's less of a like I would thought this, and now I think this, and more of a here's the dial, and it has been moved this way.
Yeah. Well, I know
of like just like learning what a small scope really is.
Right. Well, when we did the last Global Game Jam, I think we did pretty good on scope, but we did still scale back. from that. And that is probably the only reason it worked.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like if we'd have scoped even smaller, we might have been able to get a more polished thing. So yeah, it's real tough. Like
the thing that makes me want to do more game jams is Cloudbreaker. that game is perfect.
Well, that's what I think Dylan was like, but you made Clawbreaker in one night. How?
Did he know about the days of polish?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, Cloudbreaker is a different situation in that we had a larger team. You guys were 4 people strong, right? We had 7 people, I think. And I guess we only did it in 24 hours, but we also worked on it afterwards a while. And so it's gotten like after really once we finished it for the first 24 hours, the game was not that good. After we worked on it for like 4 hours afterwards, it actually ended up improving quite a bit.
Added that short hop.
That short hop though.
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
I totally get why Dylan would look at that and say, why isn't that thinking that's the average results? Because,
well, that's what I thought was the average result.
Oh, sure. Because that was your first game jam, right?
It was my first game jam. And so like the next game jam, when we made the toothbrushing game, I was incredibly disappointed because I was like, it's not another Clawbreaker. We're not going to work on this for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
I guess that brings it back to what you were talking about.
Don't you do. All my game jams have been terrible.
Well, just like having it, like maybe the expectation thing, like not every idea you make is going to be the thing you work on for like 2 years.
Well, that brings back to a question you didn't answer, which is when do you know to give up on something?
I think there's reason to believe that with games like Clawbreaker out there, that after like 1 week of development time, actually quite a bit less, right?
Yeah.
That thing is fantastic, and you guys could like proudly show that for the rest of your lives. People will be entertained by it. If you're starting out, like if you don't have an active game project right now, but you want to, like I feel like there's every reason to just gamble on a week at a time. And if your game is not like actively compulsive to play after a week, then move on at this point. Now I haven't
when you're first starting,
right? Yeah. Like I've only had very brief times in my life where I've been able to do it like that. But I'm just thinking like in terms of the numbers game, like it seems like a really attractive way to do things.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what we talked about. Like Alex kind of works that way.
Yeah.
But like, one at a time, maybe 2 at a time.
Sure.
If you're doing daring.
Hey, whoa, man. When I said the title of this was Serial,
game,
I'm talking about like serial ports, not parallel ports here. Like, let's get real. We're talking 1 at a time here.
Okay. So, I mean, that's the thing I've been thinking about, like when Metro Nexus is finished, and it's going to happen, guys, I swear.
Yay!
And when Finches is done, like that, what's the strategy for, and this is a question you wanted to ask, Lane, what's the strategy for beginning the next project? And it sounds like that's a pretty good one, is just like a prototype, give yourself maybe a limited amount of time, make a judgment and move on. I mean, put it in a drawer so you can come back to it if you want to.
Right. Yeah.
That's tough. But let's say you've worked on something for a couple months or maybe a couple of years. And it's time to get rid of it. Oof. How do you tell yourself it's time?
I mean, every time I've done this, it was like when I was pretty young.
Yeah.
And so it was like not like my professional identity was on the line or something like that. I mean, I think it definitely gets harder as you get older.
Right.
But I really think that like if you're at a spot where you have to just like work and toil away to make something that feels kind of fun for the game, I think it's time to consider it.
Yeah. The one thing I would add to that is it helps to do the playtesting and the demoing and the getting the feedback from fellow devs. That we've harped on community so often, but like that is the only way I know that Metro Nexus is any good. Right. Is because people have laughed while playing it.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I know. Like I can't convince myself because I'm not a good judge of that. My friends, even my trustworthy friends, will maybe be a little nicer to me than honest truth. But you get some strangers in a room and you have them play, and you can get a hint at if it's working or not. Yep. And I think a lot of people go without getting that feedback, And
I think so.
But that's tough to do if you are doing like a prototype a week, because you're the only arbiter at that point. So it's tough.
You can definitely show it off to people within a minute.
That is true. Yeah. I guess I'm saying that not many people do.
Yeah, maybe not many people have the opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point.
Well, if you are a like digital game dev, you really have no excuse to not be taking like some framework files from game to game with you.
Yes.
Like for example, I've got like a ton of stuff that does like math in 2D space, so I don't ever have to think about that again. And beginning to do that with some special effects packages, so that when I start a new game, it can just be like poof, it like looks and plays pretty decent, and then I can like put the game logic in it.
Yes,
And so that lets you speed up as you continue doing it.
Right? Yeah, I have a utilities class in my game that started in my last game. It just gets bigger each time, and then that will follow me to my future games, and I'll change it to other languages, and just. Is. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time, for sure. Exactly. That makes sense.
Yeah, Shanti's got his mega methods. I'm probably getting that wrong. And so I stole that idea. Super functions in our game.
We do have that.
Mega methods is a better name. He wins on that one.
Mega methods.
Yeah. I do want to go back to Stephen, when you were talking about sort of what you're thinking about, those little things that make a difference.
Yeah.
We want to talk to Lane about another name for that, which is called what?
Video game juice.
The juice, right?
Lane
those little touches.
Lane is the juice master.
Yeah, so
I am a juice journeyman. I have not earned that.
Anyway, yes, video game juice.
Yes.
What is video game juice, Lane? Can you describe it for us?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, I guess a really simple way of describing it is all of the special effects in a game that give you an intuitive read on the world.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like, without having to think about something can just feel big, or something can feel dangerous to you, or it can feel like satisfying to hit something. And what this really is a bunch of different audio, visual, and like sometimes haptic things coming together at the same time.
Yeah.
In a way that seems natural, because different senses have different advantages. For example, I'm sure you guys have seen the research that came out of Facebook recently that when somebody is in a VR environment, their beliefs are subject to change in a way that they aren't when they're looking at a screen.
Okay.
Like having the peripheral vision involved here, or maybe feeling like you're in an immersive environment, means that things that you see in there are more persuasive than they would be otherwise.
Really?
The same message strikes you in a different way.
Okay.
And so like for our game, since this is just on like flat panel screens, what we really want to do, our most important thing is making it so that people feel fear correctly. Because what you want to do is you want to take all of the like natural stimulus that you would get if like a bull was charging at you.
Yeah.
You got some like particles because there's dust flying up. You might be attenuated on that bull, so it probably looks a little bit bigger in your vision because you're focusing on it.
Right.
It's definitely making some sounds. It's definitely snorting at you, and so all the things that like a big scary animal would do, everything's a big word, but like you want the enemy that's about to shoot you in our game to do as well, so that when an enemy does damage to you in a game, you really owe it to yourself to feel something there so that you know to get out of the way.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is the fact that this is about to deal 20 damage to me is really not very interesting. I won't really feel anything about that.
Right.
But if we kind of wag the dog a little bit, if we do those things that are naturally associated with fear, the person is going to feel like I should get out of the way.
Yeah.
And they will feel, how did I know how to do that? Oh my God, I'm a genius. Like, you make people feel really good about doing things that are just like their instinct told them to do it.
Right.
I think we've all had an experience specifically with really early sort of RPGs where something like bites your character and it's like a little snake or something and you die and you're like, I didn't even see that thing on the screen. Like, this is really not satisfying. Yeah. And I feel like, so I'm totally going to go out on a psychological limb here. I don't get to do this very often. I do have a degree in it, but I don't ever get to talk about this. I feel like evolutionarily speaking, and again, whenever somebody says evolutionarily speaking, you know not to listen to them. Okay. But what I'm getting at here is that I think that primates don't like fighting snakes. Because they're very scary to us.
Whoa.
And they don't give us a lot of reward. But I feel like when primates fight like big meaty things, I think we like that a lot because they have a big reward attached to them. And so I think that if you want to make some satisfying enemies, you don't have to do this on everything. But I feel like you should make your enemies more like bulls and less like snakes. Have bigger, meatier effects on them.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
That is really cool.
That's why I call you the juice master, even though you won't accept that term.
Well, I do like that.
A journeyman is not a disrespect.
Journeyman is, yeah.
Well, I mean, when you say about it having a feeling, right? Because that transcends mechanics and it transcends aesthetics. It's that sort of holistic sense of it together.
Right.
And I thought about you recently because something I changed in Metro Nexus made me think like, oh, this is juice. Like, I need you guys to test it first. But so in my game, I was able to add rumble feedback to the controllers. It was a big deal. I was very proud of myself. But I made a mistake about how it was implemented. There's the left motor and the right motor, but it's not actually. And I was like, oh, I can pan across because I've played that sort of in games. But actually, that's not. I just read it wrong. What it really is it's the strong motor and the weak motor just have to be on the left and right side of the controller.
Yeah.
So that actually creates a more interesting. So once I learned that, I was able to add a thing where when you charge up in my game, when you charge up your weapon, originally what happened is just the rumble just got stronger and stronger and stronger, and then when you released it, depending on the direction you were firing, it would sort of quickly over the course of 3 frames, pan across the rumble. So it would feel like
your firing direction.
So it would feel like it would exit your controller in that direction.
Cool.
And I wrote the software for it, and I was like, this is great. And it felt like okay, and I'm like, whatever. But it turns out I was just wrong about what those motors did. So it doesn't actually work that way. So I was really disappointed. But then I finally, once I finally figured it out, I changed it where now it does a sort of it does the weak motor, or no, it does the stronger motor, the sort of shorter rotation, so it feels more tightly a tight rumble as you charge, and then when you release, it does just like 3 rotations of the weak motor, just and so it feels like you're like. Almost like you're dropping it, like it's sort of like it's being released. Because in my game, you don't fire a gun; you charge and release an energy.
Okay, so it's like spiraling out of your hand.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And when I tried that, I'm like, oh my god, this is juice.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
And that's something where it's not really a game mechanic, and it's not really an aesthetic to it exactly. It's that in between space that it gives the player communication about how this weapon works. So it has some mechanical adjacencies, but it also is essentially, just the sort of funsy parts of it in terms of how it's expressed. So I definitely thought of you when I finally figured that out.
Well, that's fantastic because redundancy of communication is so important.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that it's probably something that's hard to bake into your little 1 week prototypes.
Yeah.
But if you look at your game and think this looks like a cheap Newgrounds circa 1998 Flash game, then just little communication redundancies help a lot. So what's going to happen with your game is people are going to have a much better feel intuitively of how charged up the weapon is because they don't have to look at their character all the time now to see that. And further, oh man, you guys are so nice. I get to use my degrees again, which is the more, this is really obvious, but because different senses come in through such different locations.
Yeah.
One thing that's is the more just volume of a person's brain is associated with a task,
the
more real that thing will feel to them.
Sure.
And so if you can get in a little bit of haptics, sound, and vision with as much as possible, your things will cheat by feeling more engaging than they should.
Right. There's tons of that in Fingens. A lot of it's in the animation, and the sound design has gotten better and better. And I know that's something that's so hard to sort of work on in parallel, but it's really fun to watch happen. You got
to get a little better at the sounds because I oftentimes will play the game without sound, and so I don't recognize when there's not missing sounds until.
What's that popcorn sound when you hit against mines? That improved the game feel incredibly. And also that communicated to players that they can't destroy these things.
Yep.
Whereas previously visually that was already apparent, and then you didn't. But that little popcorn, that sort of harmless noise that was cute and fun, and people would naturally want to repeat because it sounded cool. It also. By the players would then purposely add to the volume of that communication, which would then communicate to them better. It was this great feedback loop that I thought was really cool in your game.
The other miracle thing about sounds for new designers is it helps you debug like nothing else.
Oh, sure.
Because you have new stimulus that's attached to things that are going wrong.
Yeah.
I think when we first added sound to Fingens, it was a nightmare cacophony because it was every frame we were adding new sounds.
Yeah.
There were just actions that we didn't realize were happening all the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I don't know. I feel like if anything from this conversation, I would like to, if there's somebody brand new to game making, I just want to promote to their awareness how important communication is.
Yeah. It's really, I remember when I went to GDC, they had like a talk about this. You guys were in the game design talk. They had like the different ways you can communicate to a player. I think that was part of it. It's just like how you do it. And this was an aspect of it. Like, adding the video game juice is important because it makes a player feel like they're actually part of the world, or it makes them feel like they're making an impact in the world.
And it requires zero work from the player.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just free. It's just free points.
Yeah. It totally just makes everything feel a lot better. It's
well, I know I've been adding cutscenes to my game lately and working on the narrative, and coming again face to face with the fact that players don't want to read anything. They don't want to learn the rules. They're just not interested in that, and that's not their fault. It's your fault. Yeah. Communicating in other ways is it's not extra. It's vital.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And I mean, Martha, you're making a point and click game. So you're going to be facing this all over the place.
Yeah.
Players going to be just breaking and you're going to watch them play and you're going to be like, it's right there. It's so obvious. Right?
Click that pixel.
Not that one. No.
Yeah.
It's the rain. You have to wash the car.
And that is expressed in mechanics as well for a game like that. So, have you thought about climbing that mountain, how that's going to be for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've thought about when I've been playing other point and clicks, I'm like, oh, this is how they're teaching you. I guess when I've been, for example, Pajama Sam, at the beginning, your first task is to find his Pajama Sam cape, because otherwise he can't go out and be Pajama Sam, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But that teaches you that you have to click around the room because he won't leave until you find the cape. So it's a little bit of a block, but it's not that hard to find because it's just random. You eventually will find it. There's no clue, but it just teaches that one mechanic of click on everything.
Ah, okay, cool.
So I'm trying to think it's also hard not to copy exactly what other people have done, but yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. How do you teach it one part of a time?
Yeah, juice can really help people feel or can learn from it. Oh man, remember when we didn't have Rumble and Fingens? Those are the dark ages. Oh my goodness.
I mean, some people have old Logitech controllers that won't have Rumble. We can't rely on it too much.
I know, but it makes the game so much better.
Yeah, dude, this is the scary part, because there was a time where I got to watch Steven play something I'd made, but with no sound and with no Rumble, and he was like, I don't think this is very good. And it's just okay, Steven, you got to try. Charles, I need your music, man.
And remember, Steven doesn't care about those things as a player. So that's
this is something Steven's changed his mind on, right?
That's how lacking juice it had.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Something I changed.
Little Steven's heart grew 3 sizes.
Okay. But adding Rumble to stuff, because your favorite character, Martha, Sparky, is unique in that she's got 2 gadgets that you can hold and charge up.
Yeah, and that would not be the same without the Rumble.
Right, yeah, because Rumble, is it increasing Rumble over time too?
And then right at the end, it has a little snap to it, just to tell you that right now you can fire for full strength.
Right, yeah, all of that stuff, it teaches the players without you having to say, by the way, Sparky can charge up her things. We do have a tip in the game that tells you that.
Is it in that Poindexter voice? Does it?
Yes. I do all the voices for Finjen. But yeah, it adds so much, and it teaches players without you having to tell them. It's so useful.
Yeah. So how to, a game dev listening at home, how do they recognize what needs juice?
That is a good question. I would think that something when you're playing a thing in your game and it doesn't quite hit the point you want, I don't know, if you have a shooting mechanism in your game and it just kind of feels flat. It feels like you're shooting something. You can see it in the game, but it doesn't really feel like it because there's no sound associated with it. The sound isn't heavy enough. Maybe you're shooting a shotgun and you want the sound to feel extremely powerful.
Right.
You might want to up the decibels on that or something, or make it sound, give it more bass, or give it a large rumble when you do fire the gun or something like that,
or to make
shake
or something.
Yeah, to make it feel powerful. Otherwise, the weapon won't feel powerful, and you could compare it to any other weapon in your game, and it won't feel as good.
Yeah, so I mean that's instead of going right to tweaking the mechanic, thinking about all the other dimensionality of that moment, and finding maybe other ways before you start, changing the core of that feature that you don't think is working.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you what you think, Lane, to get back to you.
Thank you. It's heartwarming. So I think two thoughts. The first of which is I think that if you're somebody who's interested in amping up the feel of the game, you probably owe it to yourself to like take a week, maybe just on your current project, and just try to like do a junior's thesis on the feel of like just like pick one ability or something and just try to make it as good as possible.
That's a good way of doing it. Yeah.
But I think one way to like really gauge if you need this is watch YouTube Let's Plays of Hollow Knight, because that's a game that is made by a juice master, Steven. Because in that game, you cannot watch somebody play that game without watching them just like jump around like an idiot, flailing their sword around through all the vines and stuff wherever they go.
Yeah.
Because what that game does is so magical. Everything that you hit has its own texture. So not only is the sound design just perfect in that game, but also depending on the hardness of the thing that you hit, you can feel the world as you go. So you're like a little kid just exploring the world more with your hands than your eyes. Because like as you hit different things, you'll feel like, oh, this one has like this little rumble. Oh, this thing has this little clang and a bigger rumble. This thing causes the frame rate to drop like intentionally and the time to distort just slightly because it's really big and really scary. I think if you can watch people playing a game and they're just entertaining themselves by just doing basic interactions with the world, then you've got something.
Yeah.
Really good. Because I feel like that's like an engine that can like let your game coast a little bit. I'm not quite explaining that well enough, but I feel like that's something that a game can like, independent of every other aspect. If a game does that, it'll entertain people.
Right. Yeah. If the game feels fun to play, it'll entertain them, even if like there's not much else to the game.
Yeah. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right. That is our show. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Nice Games Club in your favorite podcast app. Be sure to give it a good review if you liked it or are nice like us. We really do need to know you're out there, so leave a review and tell all your friends too. Also, feedback form, Steven. We're still pushing for it.
Yeah. Lane was nice and gave us feedback.
That's true.
God. You sound so accusatory from
Well, no, this is a great success story because Lane, you have been a good friend to us and to this show.
Yes.
You've given us really good notes on what's working, what we should tweak, what we should focus on and what we should maybe not so focus on. And it's been really valuable. And like, why let Lane have all the influence, guys? Give us feedback and help us improve because Lane did it and it works.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, topple me from my throne of bones.
How can they do that, Steven?
nicegames.club/feedback.
Yeah, it's a short form. You can fill out as much of it as you want. Tell us what you think.
Yeah.
All right. And of course, we also want to hear directly from you. So follow us on Twitter and all the other things at Nice Games Club. Let us know how we're doing. Send us your topics and ask us your questions. Lastly, you can find out more about the show and your nice hosts, your nice guests, and get all the links and notes from this and other episodes at nicegames.club. So until we start again, remember to
Play nice
and make nice.
You know why that game is so good?
Why is that game so good, Lane?
I mean, Mark, feel free to cut this if this is not germane to the topic. It's not germane to the topic whatsoever.
There's no way I'm cutting this.
But I have to explain. I have to get this out there. That game is perfect because